wearing the hat. You're 1-7. Okay, you're playing bad. Do I think that coach is going to be there next year? No, I do not. Do I think it is a bit of chaos in the locker room? Yes, I do. A, you don't say it if you're in the locker room. You don't talk outside the family, outside the locker room. And then B, are you kidding me? You sit there and you blame it. You make it sound like, oh, you had to run a little more. He's fining us. He's not at halftime. He doesn't give a solution or something. You're still on the field and can affect the play. Do something about it. Have a little bit of personal pride instead of pointing away at you, put the thumb at you. I'd have a little more respect, not much, because I hate the anonymous quote, of at least saying, you know what, it's chaos here. I don't think the coach is a good leader. We all need to take responsibility. We're all failing in some part when the record is that bad. But we didn't get that. We didn't. We got a player pointing the finger at the coach and saying, basically, it's his fault we're a mess, and in my opinion, he's doing it as a cowardly act to cover up for what he's not getting done on the field. Or a couple of people are not getting done on the field like, hey, you see us playing bad out there. It ain't on us. It's on the coach. He's lost control of this team. You have had a couple of players, Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie and Landon Collins, who have come out and in defense of McAdoo, saying it's not as bad as this person makes it sound. The one thing, Damien, that really, really hacks me is the one player where does he say, where he said the other anonymous player also said Wednesday, I'm going to keep it 100. I'm going to tell it like it is, and it's terrible, man. Oh, is that why you keep it 100? By hiding behind the anonymous and not giving your name? You want to keep it 100? Be man enough, stand up, state your name, and say you got a problem with what's going on. That's keeping it 100, not the cowardly 20 that you're given, not the 100. That aggravates the hell out of me.
How can I possibly top that? That's
I didn't mean to get that aggravated.
That was pretty epic rant. But I agree with everything you said. To me, it sounded like front-running type of guy.
Yeah.
Same coach last year. They went 11-5. Yep. Everything was great. Everybody was good last year. Partying up New York. Had the whole city at his feet. All of a sudden, the tides have turned, and now all of a sudden, people want to throw all these anonymous quotes out there. I agree 100%. When it's bad, that's the time to step forward and be like, you know what? I have to do better. My teammates have to do better. But when you start throwing people on the bus, to me, that's the sign of your character. That's the sign of the character that's in that locker room. Hell, I would like to see those guys show 80% of effort on the field, because when you watch the Giants play, I mean, all you see is people just mailing it in. I mean, the effort. And the one play that just keeps sticking out of my mind was last week against the Los Angeles Rams. Third and 33, you throw a little simple screen pass, and Robert Woods just takes off for the end zone. I mean, you kidding me? 3rd and 33, you know that type of play is coming, because what offensive coordinator is going to – what type of play can you possibly call?
There is no play in a play.
And you take a simple screen pass to the house. To me, that summarizes what the Giants have been about this whole season.
So we have all of that, and I agree with what both of you said. And again, to be clear, none of us are criticizing the reporting. You have to use anonymous quotes. Anonymous sourcing has been a part of and will be a part of journalism until the end of time. The point is, if you are an anonymous source and you are deep throat because or you're someone who's bringing down, you're pointing out something extraordinarily dangerous that's happening in the world, now you're a whistleblower, and that's heroic. If you're in a locker room and you're trying to point the finger at the coach anonymously, then I agree with you completely. It's a cowardly act. So I think you guys are right. That said, I believe it. I mean, I believe what these guys are saying, right? That it is that bad on the inside. Mm-hmm. So the question then, D. Wood, is if we believe that McAdoo isn't going to be back and we believe that Jerry Reese may not be back, the real interesting question is, will Eli Manning be back next year? What do you think?
I think that's an interesting question. The Giants at some point has to start looking towards the future. You drafted the kid Webb, I think last year in the third round. At what point do you start looking at him? As great as Eli Manning has been, at some point you have to start looking towards the future. And listen, I get it. Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls. He's been a 2-time Super Bowl. He's a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. He's going to go down, as probably the best quarterback in Giants football history. There's no question about it. But Mike, as you know, the game of football starts with no one. And the Giants organization, they're going to have to look at Davis Webb or whoever they draft early in the upcoming draft. So I think Eli Manning, if I'm the Giants, You got to take a hard look at probably moving on from Eli Manning after this year.
We had the reports out there that they were told, the scouting department, to look at these college quarterbacks, and scout them heavily, see what kind of grade you're going to get on them. I'm with you there. It seems the only one beating Father Time is going to be Tom Brady.
That's the only one.
At this point.
It does beg the question, Mike, if Eli Manning in the right circumstance right now, what exactly is he? If he goes to a good team that's a quarterback away, is he that quarterback still at 37, which he'll be next year?
Well, I mean, I still think it would be better than the unproven. I mean, in Jacksonville, I don't think Blake Bortles is going to be the quarterback next year. So you have a top defense right now. You have a running back who is just ready to take over the league. Your offensive line is getting better. So are you going to put a young new quarterback there and say, okay, we have to let this guy develop? Or are you going to say, you know what? We got a lot of pieces right now. Let's get ourselves a veteran. I don't think Eli is like we're saying, oh, my God, let's hope he can hold it together with tape and duck wire or duct tape and wire.
Right.
I still think he's a quarterback that can get the job done, and I think that's the type of quarterback you'd want for a team like that.
Yeah, he's not a guy he's not an Aaron Rodgers where he can put a franchise on your back. But I think in the right circumstance, he can absolutely take you to the next level. And you talked about Jacksonville. They got all the ingredients there. They got a great defense. They got skill guys. They got a rushing attack. You insert a veteran quarterback who's won big time in the National Football League. That team could be scary if they were to get a quarterback like Eli
It would be odd to move on from Eli. We saw this with Peyton, but that was injury related. I mean, that was 4 neck surgeries, and he's just not going to get it done anymore. This is Eli, who can still be productive, who you're basically saying, we're done with you.
Right.
We're done with you, and we're moving on. Personally, I don't think they're going to do it. I think Eli is still going to be there, but it's not like I wouldn't understand if all of a sudden they want to see what they have in Webb and they want to see what kind of grading system they would have for the quarterbacks coming out.
I will say this, and you're listening to Mike and Mike here on ESPN Radio. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And don't forget, about a half hour from now, the One Chip Challenge, which should be extraordinarily amusing to watch. The one thing that the Giants do decide to stay with Eli, that they have, is the best thing you can have, which is a super high draft pick in a quarterback-rich draft, and they don't want a quarterback. If they decide they're not going to take Josh Rosen or Josh Allen or Darnold if he comes out or whoever it is, you can get, history has shown recently, you can get a king's ransom for that. So they should be able to put together a huge package, a treasure trove of draft picks if they decide not to go that route. The question is that worth it? Is it worth it to hang on to a 37-year-old and try and get, one more year, one run at it? If we get Odell back and all these guys who are hurt come back, is it 1 year at it?
I think, Damian, because of the money they put in that defense, which 2 years ago was really good,
right,
and can you still get something out of that defense? You're going to sign Odell. You have to sign Odell. So he's one of the best receivers in the league. You got to get your running game going. I think you're at a point where you can make another run. And are you doing that with a new quarterback? Are you doing that with Davis Webb, if you like what you see out of him, or a drafted quarterback? I think while you have some of the pieces in place, you still continue to make that run.
I think the one area, and we've constantly talked about with the Giants, is the line. You got to if you can somehow get the line situated and straightened out, then I think in that scenario, I can see Eli being there and they making that one final push. Because like you said, in free agency a couple years ago, they brought all those guys in on defense, and they were really, really good.
Yep.
The only thing I'll say is if you believe, and Mike, to your point, we had the story yesterday that their top scouts have been dispatched to look at these quarterbacks. If you believe that Josh Rosen or Josh Allen or Mason Rudolph or Lamar Jackson or the kid at Oklahoma's name just jumped out of my head who's going to win the Heisman, Baker Mayfield. If you believe one of those guys is going to be a superstar quarterback, then you take him. Yeah. Because you're looking at a maximum of 2 more years of Eli, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I think
so. You take him.
You always hear that if you think it's a franchise guy,
you got to take him.
Kind of, even if he has to sit, and wait.
I mean, if that's what you decide to do, that's what you decide to do.
I would agree with that.
But I mean, look at the Packers have been a Super Bowl contender every year for 30 years because they went from Favre to Rodgers. I know they've only won it twice, but they've been there constantly, and that's because they've had the quarterback. All right, D Wood, let's go on to some other stuff that we see around the league here. What was and he apologized yesterday. What was your take on Jameis Winston and his little provocative action on the sideline that led to Mike Evans racing over and defending him and ultimately led to Evans getting suspended?
Just immature. He needs to grow up. To me, that's the biggest thing. I mean, listen, you're the quarterback. You're the CEO of the franchise. You can't be sitting around monkeying around I don't know what pointing or, instigating or whatever the case may be. Jameis has to understand. And listen, I think Jameis can be a really, really good quarterback in the National Football League. But I think on the behavior side and understanding what your role is as the quarterback of a franchise, the face of a franchise, you can't be participating in those type of things. You just can't. You have to worry. You have to be focused on what's going on in the game. I could see somebody who's on special teams, messing around doing something. But the quarterback, I don't know how many times I've seen a quarterback ever do something like that on the sideline. So if there's one thing that I can point to about Jameis, it's the immaturity. He needs to step that aspect of his maturation up to realize his potential as an NFL
I can't think of another franchise quarterback out there that would have done or has done something like that. And you remember on Hard Knocks watching, you heard Dirk Cutter say it's time for you to be the Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers,
right.
Not a talent-wise yet, but of this team. You are. You've heard Gerald McCoy, their great Pro Bowl defensive lineman, said this team runs through Jameis. It's his team. And there's a big responsibility to that. And on the field, he's just got to keep slinging it. He's going to throw his interceptions. I don't think that's going to change.
Right.
But you'd rather see 35 touchdowns to go with the number of interceptions that he has. So he needs to get to that point. But that other stuff, and he's admitted. So now he admitted it, but now the actions will speak louder than the words. How will he act going forward?
Let me read you his apology, because he did yesterday. He said, I just want to apologize on behalf of my teammates and Mike Evans for the incident that happened in the Saints game. That's something I can't do. In the heat of the moment, again, my competitive nature, obviously I can't come onto the field and make any gesture toward an opponent, let alone touch him. So I can't do that, so I apologize for that. So he apologized.
A lot of that had to do when you're losing, stuff like this happens. When you're winning, you have a totally different mindset.
Well, they're certainly doing a lot of losing. Let's talk about some teams that are doing a bunch of winning. Let's talk about the Eagles. You watch them play right now. What is it that stops them? They don't seem to have, in a league where there are no great teams. Well, hold on. What don't the Eagles have? What is it they're missing that separates them from being a great team?
Man, it's really hard. When you look at the Eagles, all around, they're very good. The thing that I love about the Eagles, listen, obviously Carson Wentz right now, he could be, people talking about him as the MVP and probably the likely front runner. I love the way they play in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They get after you on the offensive and on the defensive front. Boy, they get after the quarterback. They really do. They stop the run, and once they stop the run, they just flat out get after you. That type of football can take you all the way to Minneapolis to the Super Bowl. The quarterback is playing fantastic. The Eagles made a bold move in trading for Jay Ajayi to show up that rushing attack. But defensively, man, they can really get after the quarterback. When you have all those components working in your favor, it's a very scary team.
I agree. I think it's the line. A lot of these teams a lot of the team is great, but these lines, that's where it has to be dictated. Fletcher Cox is just
amazing.
Absolutely dominating on the inside of that interior offensive lineman that he's dominating. And that O-line, Kelsey's undersized. Wisniewski wasn't supposed to be the starter when the season started. You've lost Jason Peters now for the year, yet guys that are filling in, guys that are getting the job done. They're not an overly large. A couple of those guys aren't overly large, but they're getting it done right now. It's been really impressive.
Here's my favorite statistic of the entire week of the NFL. Last week, the Eagles faced the number one scoring defense in the league, and they ran out of fireworks. The Eagles literally ran out of fireworks. They had none left to shoot off because they had scored so many points, and that was against the Denver Broncos, who had given up the fewest points of any team in the league. So if we look for the team to challenge them in the NFC, is it, don't look now, but the Los Angeles Rams behind Jared Goff and the rejuvenated Todd Gurley and, a little bit of a rough, tough defense and a 31-year-old head coach? Is that the next team in the NFC?
They're fun to watch. They're a fun bunch to watch. It's amazing what coach can do for you. You're talking about a guy in Jared Goff last year that a lot of people, was talking about being a bust. And early in his career, Sean McVay comes over, young guy, a lot of energy. Obviously, coached with Kyle Shanahan and Jay Gruden. So he's really coached up Jared Goff, and that offense looks explosive. Man, that team, they're a scary team, but I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Dallas Cowboys right now are playing really, really good football. Dak Prescott is playing at a super high level, and Zeke is just showing out.
So we're gonna find
He's
out.
just showing out. Yeah, they're in the same division. Something's got to give.
Well,
something's got to give.
The first thing we got to find out is going to give, is he going to be there?
Right, exactly.
You know, that's a huge thing, just hanging over their head week after week.
It's. I just want this whole thing to be resolved, because it seems like one week the league wins, the next week, Zeke, at some point, let's get this thing resolved. So, for the Cowboys' sake, they know what they know what they have moving forward and can plan accordingly. But Dallas is playing some really good football right now.
And speaking of the Cowboys and needing to get something resolved, you're obviously aware of these stories here about Jerry Jones, and he's trying to stage like a coup against Roger Goodell before Goodell gets his contract extension, which is theoretically on the table now or could be extended to him any minute. We had Shefty in here talking about it. What, as a former player and one who observes this, what is your take?
Jerry Jones reminds me of his mentor, Al Davis. He's like a maverick type guy. He's always kind of bucked the trend. And I heard you guys talking about earlier, from when Jerry Jones first became owner of the Dallas Cowboys, some of the things, unconventional things he did as far as marketing that made the Dallas Cowboys a bunch of money and obviously propelled them to kind of America's team, the most popular franchise in the league. But this has it just reminds me of Al Davis. Al Davis used to challenge the league all the time, and obviously he was a mentor to Jerry Jones. And again, to me, this whole thing is about money. This whole thing is about money, and when the bottom line is getting messed with, heads going to roll.
Yeah.
People going to start looking at, well, who can I point the finger as to why my bottom line is going down, and the number one person is going to be Roger Goodell.
Greeny, I'm with you. I think we both agree. We think Goodell's going to get the extension, that competition committee is going to serve that up. And then I do think the biggest question is what happens next. Jerry Jones is very loud right now. What happens when he doesn't get his way? Will he stop?
For what it's worth, according to Forbes, the Cowboys are the most valuable sports franchise in the world, valuated at $4.2 billion.
And that's Jerry Jones. That's Jerry Jones.
That's all
without
him.
question. Yep.
All right, D. Wood is going to be here with us as the hour continues, and Mikey Golick Jr. is here, and Trey is on the way. Again, in about 20 minutes or thereabouts, these guys are going to do the one-chip challenge. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I know for sure two things. A, I'm not doing it, and B, I'm looking forward to watching it, and you should too, with us on ESPN2. But right now, a word from Dollar Shave Club, and you've been hearing us for years talking about the amazing shave you get from a Dollar Shave Club razor, especially when you use it with their shave butter.
But they also make products, yes, for your hair, face, skin, shower, everything you need. Dollar Shave Club has you